Good evening, everybody. Good afternoon, I guess. Happy Friday to all of you. I have 15 minutes, so I'll browse through a few quick points that I thought are important to share. When you look at the role of technology and you think about compliance, obviously everybody here is no stranger to the massive amount of change that I think businesses have been facing over the last 3 or 4 years. And I think the broader point that many folks miss, and what we are observing as a company, we used to be a very B2C income tax oriented company, and then what we saw 3 years back was the consumer side technology adoption is being appreciated by a lot of people, investors, common man on the street, and so on. People don't understand how quickly businesses are digitizing, and within that, how quickly the economy like India, which was completely undigitized, and taxes and compliance was practically optional, how that is changing. So I'll throw some perspectives on the table with regards to that, right? So the first thing is, at this point of time in India, right, according to at least our count, there are around 170 business compliances, right, that you have to follow, right? Now, every business wants to be compliant, but it's not easy at all, right? Now, as per our estimate, right, when we interact with a lot of these companies and we are in this business now, we find that 100% of the businesses, right? So if you think you are the only one who's struggling to get all compliances in place, trust me, you're like, if you feel that, you're one of the rare exceptions. If you think that you're finding it easy, everybody else is finding it challenging, right? And why is that, right? Very simply, the laws are changing all the time, right? The rules are becoming more and more stringent. The business systems that we have across the economy in general, but even within larger companies, right, are weak. And I would say, Shawan talked about being adaptive, right? Like our systems are not adaptive, right? Too many old things cannot dance on the fly. And there are too many counterparties at this point of time that are involved in your own compliant, you're being compliant, right? The last thing to mention is that especially ever since the e-invoicing era kind of got launched last October in the country, India becomes a real-time kind of compliance-led kind of society, right? So it's a very big change, which every year, right, you observe a little bit, but when you look at a 3 to 4 year kind of a horizon, right, it's actually very mass change that we have taken, right, as an economy, right? Now, all of us who are gathered here, right, at the end of the day, right, what we are responsible for at one level is like how do we run the company. At another level, how do we create value for our enterprise, right, and our shareholders and whatnot. So I used to be an investor before I came to ClearTax, right? And one of the things that globally, when you look at developed markets versus emerging markets, right? There's two things I just want to mention and would like you to kind of reflect upon this as well, right? Compliance at this point of time, right? 10 years back, compliance was optional, right? Only the people who are very used to compliance, either because they are built a certain way or they have shareholders who kind of force them to be compliant. It was optional. You could get away with a lot of holes, right? Now it is not. Now it is a differentiation, right? Not everybody is compliant, and there are people who are great with compliance, and there are other people who are not great, and it can be seen very, very easily through public records, right? The second thing is compliance is a very strong signal of quality and governance, right? Especially in developed markets, and that's purely because in the longer term, investors and shareholders and everybody understand that macros, laws, currency, policy in developed markets, those are all given. In the emerging market concept, they are actually extremely unpredictable, right? Your governance and compliance is fully in your control, right? So it is seen as a very strong intent, strong signal of intent and quality by all investors. And again, right, what you see is this actually plays out in the public markets very, very comfortably. If you see, and according to some surveys, all the investors find this to be like they would pay a premium for this, and the extent of the premium is like can be 10 to 20%, right? So from a shareholder value standpoint, we find this to be a very, very meaningful thing to think about. Now, I had mentioned a couple of minutes back that not everybody is compliant, right? As per our estimates, this is based on the data that we see from 2,500 odd enterprises and roughly speaking, 60,000 chartered accountants who use our platform for filings, right? About 75% of the enterprises are not fully compliant, right? And within that, kind of 80% of enterprises actually leave out significant money on the table because of the poor compliance, right? They have vendors who are non-compliant. There are 3B filings that don't happen on time. And then there is now this, good old input tax credits, which actually gets left on the table, right? When we looked across our whole ecosystem, right, and we said, hey, what is the cost of this non-compliance, right? We think it is in the order of magnitude of 6 to 8% of PBT, right, which is left aside, and the lower, obviously, kind of margin company you are, the higher kind of this number becomes for you, and 5 to 7% of working capital, right, becomes blocked because of a lot of these, especially GST and kind of that related area, right? The other thing also, obviously, all of you are aware, right? The government has actually completely switched in the last 3 to 4 years. And whether it's on the personal side, where I think they made the move a few years back, and now on the business side, right? They're using technology very, very heavily, right? To monitor these businesses, right? Like I was actually shocked at the number, like 1.63 lakh GSTNs were cancelled in the October-November time period, right? For non-filing of GST returns, right? There are some companies, very large companies who have been kind of almost taken out of the queue and then scolded publicly for non-compliance without naming. But there's actually, it's not just those isolated cases, they're happening at a very, very regular level. Amongst our customers, we have seen a lot of people who have been tardy with filing, despite a lot of reminders and so on, just because of habit, they've also gotten penalized, right? It's also becoming, the government has started to everywhere, right? And also in GST, right? They're collecting penalties now, which was not really there in the first 2.5 years of GST. Now you see penalties kind of coming in and a lot more stricter compliance happening on that front, right? And then obviously I talked about the 6 to 7% because of ITC that is lost out, right? So now the key point is, if the government has now kind of deeply embraced technology, right, to increase their monitoring, it's a very high time that you as a business, right, also start to do the same, right? Now, what we believe is that the lot of the companies who have, who are conscious, either have, in-house solutions and become, very, very, I would say, aggressive adopters of technology, or have started to look outside, right? So just worth reflecting on how much technology adoption have you done in your businesses. Obviously, everybody here has done some baseline level, but the game is changing very, very fast, right? Now, in our opinion, right, to be compliant, let's say everybody wants to be compliant, right? What are the 2 or 3 things that you would want if to make your life simple, right? In my opinion, there are like 2 or 3 things that are really critical to you being able to very comfortably say that, hey, I'm compliant, right? Number 1 is like having digital everything, right? From invoices, filings, POs, everything, right? Everything being digital and everything available at a click of a button, right? The second thing, like even within that, on the digital side, the government is forcing it down. Geo is making it easy for every business to digitize. So at this point of time, digital everything is kind of a given in India, especially when you take from 2021 to 2024 kind of a view. This is going to happen for sure, right? The second one is automation, right? There are a lot of things that we can do, which our people are doing, which can be automated, right? It's reconciliations between 5 different things and so on. Right? There are a lot of things which are programmatic and can be programmed into automation, right? That's number 2. And the third thing is, like, if by some magic you can have single data sources, right? We all know we have ERPs and so on and so forth. 5 different people are looking at supposedly the same data is looking like 6 different ways, right? So another kind of thing that I think the world is evolving to, and we have seen this in the developed markets, US, UK, and so on, right? They're starting to, as businesses start to digitize, their counterparts start to digitize, right? It becomes easy to imagine, platforms where multiple people can log in, right? And look at the same data in the same way, right? That will cut down communication and coordination costs a lot, and it will, kind of lead to a dramatic shift in terms of how compliant you are, right? And actually, it's not just about compliance; it's just how well governed you are, right? So now, just a few minutes of a plug for ClearTax and how are we trying to solve this problem. We believe, we can help achieve 100% compliance by making things a little bit of a smarter way, right? So on the baseline things that we are making today, right? Many of you are aware that there are government tools, there are some, Big Four technology and so on. There are some, ad hoc ERP solutions. I don't want to go into all the details, but these are suboptimal at multiple levels, right? I will talk about the right-hand side of the screen, which is what we do, right? So we obviously, Shaman mentioned a couple of minutes back about, ML, right? So we are built on very deep analytics and AIs, which reduce the need, for a lot of manual work. We actually help you optimize taxes because we know in many cases kind of where things have been left on the table. We are building products around that. We do reconciliations. We make a powerful UX that anyone can use and make it easy for people to kind of see whatever the gaps are. We help with ERP integrations. We do a lot of data validations. We help you communicate with your vendors and do like tracking and follow-ups with them, right? So these are all the things that we are doing. In addition, what we are doing at this point of time is we are building out a platform, and it's still something that we feel very excited about our next leap. And if you see on the first slide, I kind of mentioned that we are actually in the process of calling ourselves from ClearTax to Clear, and then taxes will be one of our product lines, and then we are going to be doing more products. What we are doing is we are creating a network where all of you can log in, right? You can log in, your distributors, dealers can log in with their own permissions and so on. So think about like, your Facebook looks very different than, let's say some other friends' Facebook and so on, because you have a different ecosystem, they have a different ecosystem. This is where we believe the businesses will go as well. And just like on Facebook, you may be sharing pictures. Here you may be sharing, POs, and people can comment and people can say accepted, rejected, all of those things. And then allow third parties like accountants, Big Four, auditors, anybody, right, to also log into the same platform and get the data in the same way and cut out massive amounts of time and a risk of non-compliance over there. What we do is we take your ERPs, whatever ERP that you may have or your counterparty may have, we figure out what is the best way to read the data out of them. We have learned now how to make sense out of the data, no matter what column name, row name is there, we make sense out of it. And then we take this data across multiple counterparties that are there, whether these are your vendors, your dealers, GSTN, CBDT, NIC, anybody, right? So that's what we do. We come on top of your ERP and we make it intelligible for the whole ecosystem, right? And in our opinion, in the next 3 to 4 years, how the world will play out is, the business processes will be largely automated. A lot of manual stuff still goes on. There will be AI-based surveillance for tax compliance, and the penalties and so on will continue to increase. Government is under tremendous pressure from its own revenue standpoint, and they will do it not because they have love for taxes, but because they have love for revenue. Eventually, you will have interlinked direct and indirect tax systems. You will have interactions over vendor and distributor ecosystems, and you will have eventually credit availability for your ecosystem and invoice discounting. All of these things will just come through technology, right? So in short, it'll move from a good to have to a must have, the technology layer, right? Now, in our opinion, what we have seen from a lot of our customers is they take like 3 or 4 steps to come to where they eventually need to come to, right? The first thing they'll do is like they'll hire more people, right? Okay, log badha do, right? Then they'll say, hey, it's not enough. Let me upgrade my workforce, right? Like let me switch out the lower grade guy and move him with a higher quality of guy, right? Then that also doesn't work, right? Then they will get like a expensive audit firm and so on, who'll send people in suits and do it, right? Eventually, right, people realize it's actually a technology problem, right? And it is not a people problem per se, right? You give the right people, smart people, a right technology, and they will do wonders. We believe that's the smart route, and we believe, obviously a little bit biased here, but we believe that that's the right solution that we can provide wherever you guys are ready. Obviously, at this point of time, a lot of you and 2,500 enterprises at this point of time out of the top 10,000 use our products. So we are kind of expanding very fast in this area. If you have any questions about this, or if any of this resonated, this is my email ID. Please write to me. Happy to help you.